Welcome to the CDP, the Commercial Directors Podcast, where we discuss all things commercial directing, treatments, pitching, problem solving on set, and commercial breakdowns. Now you host Evan Swinehart.
3, 2, 1, talk to me.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Commercial Directors Podcast. Pumped to have fellow podcaster Oren Kaplan here, commercial director with Art Class and Undivided. But I also think a ton of people are going to know him from the Just Shoot It podcast. Oren and Matt were a huge inspiration to myself to kind of start a podcast. So I'm very excited to be talking to Oren today. Oren, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's fun. It's fun to see your process of making a podcast versus my process. I don't know if you have this as a director, but I always just assume we all kind of work the same. And then people will be like, I really like the way you format your shot list, like shot 101, 102, 103. And I'm like, isn't that literally how every person does it?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I do A, B, C. So it's just, we're kind of in these weird silos. It's fun to interact with each other and see how other people do it. And your podcast is much more research than mine is. I can tell you that much.
Well, I don't know. It's so funny because I do these kind of pre-interview calls, to kind of figure out the lay of the land. And Oren thought we were recording right after. And he's like, wait, we're not going to do the recording. I'm like, no, we'll schedule that later. And you're kind of like, well, why not? And then after that, I was kind of like, yeah, why not? You're like, it just might be more efficient. And I totally was second guessing myself and have my other ones planned to try it where I'm going to be like, we'll do our little 15-minute thing and go straight into the record. Because I do think everything would be a lot fresher and it might be better. So thanks for questioning me and pushing it to maybe do it a little different here.
Yeah, well, your email that you sent me before we met for the pre-interview was actually also a really great pre-interview. And so in my mind, I thought the email was the pre-interview. Yeah, I don't know. I am, as a father of 2 young children and a director that says yes to way more jobs than I should, I'm just always looking for the least amount of time I can spend on something. I also talk a lot. So that's why we're recording tomorrow an episode. And we literally just booked our guest an hour ago. And I was like, hey, last minute thing. Do you want to come do a segment? And they're like, sure. So
yeah.
That's kind of how we operate.
And I'm a procrastinator. So that's probably why I'm just pushing off the actual work by just being like, yeah, if I do this, I'll get to it. But not right now. Well, let's maybe just start with, I'm just curious with Just Shoot It. What made you guys start the Just Shoot It podcast?
Well, so everyone knows that directors don't really get to meet other directors, especially, did you go to film school? I forget.
I did. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where'd you go?
I went to University of Colorado.
Oh, cool.
It's experimental is what it's kind of, Stan Brakhage is what it's kind of founded on.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the only place you ever really get to work with other directors, you know? And I guess if you kind of come up through crew work, maybe you get to experience what a lot of other directors do. Or if you're an actor turned director, even a creative in the commercial world, a agency side creative turned director, you get to see how a lot of directors work. But for me personally, I didn't go to film school, and I just started making videos and mainly hung out with actors when I first moved to LA. So I just never saw how other directors worked. And a friend of mine who was an editor, actually, Eric Kissack, he edited The Studio, and he's been on our podcast a bunch, started a directors group, and he invited me, and it was mind-blowing. It was kind of annoying because directors all just love talking about themselves for so long. But it was fun to just hear other people talk about agencies and pitches, and it was less interesting what they told me about themselves in the group, but more it presented this opportunity where I could ask other directors hey, how did you get your agent? Hey, how much are you supposed to get paid for this thing? Hey, you came up with an idea with a writer, who owns it? All these things that there's no real place Reddit, there's no place where you can get that information. And in that same group, Eric, my friend, said, he said, what would be cool if there was a Script Notes, which is, this popular screenwriting podcast. By the way, we've done over 500 episodes since we started in 2015. So to give you some context, this is like kind of pre, like I think it's like when WTF was like the only podcast, you know, pre Joe Rogan. This is a long time ago, and he said it would be cool to do a script notes, but about directing. And so a week later, I was like, you know what, that would be amazing. And I emailed him. I was like, hey man, let's do it. Let's do the script notes for directors. But he was editing, I think, The Good Place back then, or some other, or he edited Veep also. He's this big editor that was doing really well. And he's like, dude, I have kids. I have this editing job. There's no way I can do it. And randomly, my wife, who's an actor, acted in this commercial, and she had met the director's wife was also in that commercial, and they got to know each other, and they're like, oh, both of our husbands are directors. We should all have dinner together. And so Matt was her husband. The four of us had dinner, and I just told him that thing about the script notes. He loved script notes, and he was like, yeah, I also had an idea for like a story-based podcast called The Story Hack. It's about kind of how to put together stories. This is in the time when we were very into narrative filmmaking, you know, which I think most filmmakers, if you come from like the film side, you start out like, I want to make features, I want to make TV shows. I don't know that a lot of people start out in commercials, you know, maybe music videos. But I was like, well, what if we just do nuts and bolts? Like, I love tips. I love Movie Maker magazines. I love like, hey, you want to make a feature film? Here's how you split it up into 100 points, and you sell 50 points to the investors, and you keep 50 points for the filmmakers. Like, I love just learning that stuff. I was like, let's do a podcast about that, and we'll just interview all our director friends or directors we want to meet. And so he was like, yeah. So we went to the Script Notes website. They had a list of the gear that they were using, and we just bought the exact same gear and on Amazon. And a week later, we just started recording. And yeah, and that's it. So we were never friends. We barely knew each other when we started the project. And we talk about this on our podcast, but we think part of the longevity of the podcast is due to the fact that we weren't really friends when we started, because we kind of didn't want to like let each other down. So yeah, and it's been amazing for me personally. I don't know how you feel about your podcast, but whether people listen to it or not isn't really as important as A, the information that we're getting from people, B, the access you have to people. Yeah. And you're putting something out into the world. Like, I was obsessed with this idea of everydays. I don't know if you know, like Beeple, or there's these artists that would do like a Cinema 4D rendering every day, and just the whole rule is just put out something every day and don't worry about if it's good or not. And we put out a podcast episode every single week. If I've accomplished nothing else, if no one reads my feature script, if no pitches I do, you know, award, I still have, the world will still have a heartbeat of me in some way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's insane. One every week, because you're in 500 episodes, and this will be episode 14 of my show. So
I told you my opinion on the only way that it can be done is if you hire an editor.
Yeah.
Pay them.
Yeah. Got to do that. Or even just a producer, I think would help big time.
Because the conversations are easy, right? This part's the fun, easy part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just don't want to worry about like any of the logistics or anything. I kind of want to just show up and do it, which it sounds like you've got going on, which is nice.
Yeah.
So doing over 500 episodes, like, what is, and I'm sure there's like a million things you've learned, because I'm like very similar. Like, somebody asked me kind of like, you know, why you started this podcast, and it's like, I'm not really sure exactly, you know, but it's more like selfish. It's like, okay, I want to try to learn as much as possible. And I was getting asked a lot of questions. And I was like, from other directors, I'm like, well, let's put a podcast on, and we can answer a lot of these, because I don't think a lot of people understand commercial directing. It is a very weird career and title, you know, with like the triple bidding and the agency process and everything. It's just a little different than any other crew member. And I think different than even like directing features or television, you know? So there's just a lot of like kind of weird nuances to it. But I'm curious, like, over, you know, and you guys talk about a lot of different things, not just commercial directing. I know you guys do a lot in like features and whatnot, but from the commercial directing side, what's maybe like one of the like, or maybe if you even have a few, like some of the biggest learnings from your podcast that you've learned from some of your guests with commercial directing?
Well, I guess I do steal a lot of things, and I think over the 11 years that we've been doing it, commercial directing has evolved. I mean, the most obvious difference is the treatments. The way treatments have been made has changed, and I didn't really know a ton about treatments when I started this podcast, and I've learned from guests. But one of our first guests, and he was actually part of the directors group too, this guy Tim Nakashi, probably episode 20 or something. He told us how he writes a treatment, which is, and he does kind of like musical, really cool kind of hip, like fashion-y type things, but also he just directed like an OK Go music video, and he's done all sorts of kind of interesting things like that. But he told me he gets kind of the brief, whether it's for the music video or for the commercial or whatever, and then he just goes on YouTube and he just starts watching videos. And he said, I'll just watch videos for hours and hours until I feel like my brain is just completely full of content. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just like open up the blank page, and then I'll just start typing my ideas. And I trust that what I've been feeding my brain is gonna my brain will figure out how to turn that into something useful. And I remember at the time he was telling us about this like 50-page treatment he had written. And this was when Matt and I were writing like 3-page treatments, and I was like, 50 pages. And he was like, yeah, I noticed that the longer the treatment is, the higher the chance I get the job. And again, this was like so long ago. Now as the trends catch up to themselves, you have to reinvent things. Yeah. Now, it used to be, when I first started, I feel like the perfect length of a treatment was like 15 pages, and then it kind of got to like the 50 pages. And also nowadays, people want to do like 3 6s that are unique from the 15s, right, and all that. They're trying to get so much bang for the buck now. Now I'm kind of like, especially with ChatGPT and all these, I feel like, I don't know about you, I feel like I'm the only director that writes their own treatments nowadays. Because even the directors that make their own treatments are using like ChatGPT to kind of do first drafts and everything. And I just cannot get any of this AI stuff to sound like me. Yeah. And my biggest rule for myself when I'm writing treatments is to just not waste people's time. Just assume no one's reading it. And if they are reading it, there better be 3 words that differentiate you from the other directors pitching on this job, on this page. I'm huge into like call outs. Like, here's 4 paragraphs about what's going to happen in the scene, but I'm going to bold these 2 sentences, because if you need to know one thing, it's that the camera is going to be the point of view of this baseball that's flying around this hotel, right, or whatever, Yeah. And then the rest of the language explains what I mean by that, but I need to grab onto things. And so now I think kind of the people are just so bored of these like long ass treatments and these amazing images and Midjourney and Shot Deck and all these tools that didn't exist 5 years ago to create unlimited imagery, that now being succinct and terse and precise is really important. And also, as I kind of level up in my commercial directing career, like I'm pitching against huge directors, regularly in a bid with like a Smuggler or an Anonymous Content or an RSA or a Radical or the Caviar. And I'm like, these directors are not writing their own treatments. They have a team of amazing artists that are making their treatments. So I don't think I'm going to beat them on like a better image or better font or better graphic. Like, I need it to be at a certain level to not be laughed at. But now it's going to the idea, the passion, and my take on the subject. And if I want it to be different than other directors, it's got to not be something that ChatGPT came up with, Yeah,
for sure. Well, and didn't I hear in like one of your podcasts that you'll do like video? You've done like video treatments?
Yeah, I had a little run where I kept winning on the video treatments.
Yeah.
So I kept doing them, and then I lost like 2 in a row, and I was like, this is not fun.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so, but I do my move, which everyone probably does. Again, this is one of those things where I feel like everyone probably does this. But whenever I win a job, I ask why I won the job, and a lot of times they'll point this out. But I always shoot some sort of test video. Mm-hmm. And I try to like get to know the product, and I know it seems so cliche or maybe cheesy, but I don't do it in like a false way. Like today I had a creative briefing. I'm pitching on a commercial for an eye drop brand. And I happened to like use that eye drop brand.
Yeah.
It's like the one that, and so of course on the meeting today when they were like, so Oren, what do you think about all this? I was like, hold on, having a little trouble seeing everyone. And I put the eye drops in my eye. And that's kind of what the campaign is about these people in mundane situations that need eye drops. And so like, yeah, I think that's like I'm trying to get the agency people to feel like I care as much as they do about the work, you know?
Right.
And sometimes it's like you're just super artistic, or you have like, you know, Luca Guadagnino or whatever directing your commercial, and he's like a genius artist, and it's one thing. But sometimes it's just like, hey, I know that this is about getting people to buy Blue Buffalo dog food.
Yeah.
And I have a dog, and yeah. And, you know, I had a pitch a couple months ago for Sephora, which like, I don't know how on earth I got shortlisted for it, but I did not win it. And I'm like, you know, it's if it was about raising a daughter or something, like, you know, that there's like some slivers of relatability that are perfect for me. But in general, I like don't love going to Sephora. I never feel that comfortable in that store. My daughter's always like, why is mascara $25? And I was like, I have no frame of reference for how much that's even supposed to cost. So like, there's probably better directors.
Yeah. I had that once. It was for a women's underwear company. And I was just like, this is like, I have no idea. I'm like, I can't speak to this at all. And I didn't get the job. And it was kind of like, you know, well, why didn't I get the job? It's like, we didn't really feel like you like, you know, knew the product or could relate. It's like, well, yeah, no shit. Why did you pick me to do this? You know, but I was desperate. I didn't say no, you know?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it might be a tonal thing, or obviously your stuff is like so kind of beautiful and visceral and action sports, and kind of you're in nature, you're authentic, your stuff is like epic. And you could see maybe it's like an athletic product, you know, and they're using your work as reference, you know, to kind of show the energy and the types of things that their customers do. Then it makes sense, you know, but sometimes it's a stretch, you know? Yeah,
for sure.
I don't know if I answered your good tips that I've stolen from guests.
No, it's good. And I mean, it's like, we're just kind of freestyling. So, I like, cause one thing you said too, which I thought is funny, was like the 50-page treatment. Cause there's some times like where I put like, okay, a ton of effort into a treatment, and it's like, okay, you cover every single detail, you know, you're covering every little thing that you could possibly think of. And I've won the job, and they're like, because of that, you know, they're just like, oh, just the amount of work you put into the treatment. Like, I've heard that a few times, and I've also noticed, I don't know if you've noticed this, it's how enthusiastic you are when you're pitching. Like, if I'm like super enthusiastic and have a ton of energy, I feel like I'll usually win. And when I ask, like you do, like, okay, why did I win this? It's like the amount of detail you put into the treatment, and you would just seem so enthusiastic about the job. You know, it wasn't like something about like some idea
genius
I had.
idea.
Yeah, exactly. It was just more of like my interest and the effort I put into the treatment kind of won you the job, which I always find interesting.
Yeah, and there's obviously no rules. Like I know for a fact that like this past the end of last year was a little rough. I lost a lot of jobs in a row. I pitched 6 jobs. I got one disappeared, one had some legal issues, and 3 I just like straight up lost, you know? And 2 of those 3, the 2 that weren't Sephora, I mean, I worked hard on the Sephora one too, but the other 2, one of them I did make like a 47-page treatment, this comedy spot, comedy campaign that I really, really, really wanted. And I went all out, you know, in every detail, wardrobe, you know, I did like whatever, all these AI generated wardrobe tears and things and designed things. And the other one, I designed like a custom video game and did all these like previs renderings and tests with my kids. Like, there's no way in any world that the other directors that won like did more work than me on those treatments. And I don't think there's any way they're more passionate than me. Like in the first call I had with the agency, I already brought all these like kind of motion capture videos that I made in my office and showed them like how like, hey, is this kind of what you guys are thinking? This, because I think this can be really cool. And they were like so into it.
Yeah.
From one of them, I was the reco too, and they ended up not going with me. But sometimes it's just like, hey, the other director, like I lost a job because the other director had done a Super Bowl spot, and the client was like, wow, we could have a Super Bowl director.
Right.
And I've never done a Super Bowl spot. So, you know, you can only do what you can do. And at some point, you're just like not quite ready for that job, or they're friends with, I've been on the receiving end. I remember when I started out, I got a job where they were like, I was friends with the producer on the agency side, and they're like, Oren, we're going to give this to you, but like, you need to work a little harder. Look at this treatment the other director sent, you know? And I was like, oh, damn, that's a really good treatment. I would have probably picked them if we weren't friends too, you know?
Yeah.
So there's only so much that's in your control, but I believe in just like going all out on every single thing. And then being depressed for about one solid week when you lose the job, and then move on to the next.
Yeah. And so, because you have a VFX background, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you got into directing? Were you VFX first and then got into directing, or?
No, I mean, I didn't go to film school, but because I went to UCLA and I studied computer science and engineering.
Oh, nice.
So I was more of an engineer. I moved to San Francisco. I worked in Silicon Valley. But I always like loved videos, and even when I went to UCLA, I like was an extra on TV shows. I was on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Seventh Heaven, and all these great shows that were shooting back in the day in LA. And I just fell in love with like being on set and the teamwork and the dolly and the Steadicam and the art department and the actors and the free food, which like after 20 years of being in this business, it's still my favorite part of this business.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, if like whatever you shoot sucks or they kill it or whatever, it never makes it to the air, I still got like awesome food, you know, that I didn't have to pay for. That I still get very excited by the free food aspect of filmmaking.
Yeah, do you bring home if you have leftover crafty? Do you bring it all home?
Well, it depends. If it's like exactly the types of things we put in our kids' lunches or something, maybe I'll grab a couple granola bars. I just watched a video about how horrible granola bars are for human beings. The word granola kind of fooled me, but yeah. So I just kind of fell in love with being on set, and then I kept making videos even as I was an engineer. When I would hang out more with like artists than I did with other engineers. And then at some point I was like, I just got to move to LA. And even in college and everything, I was always into Adobe Premiere and After Effects and then Final Cut Pro and then back to Premiere. And I think like every filmmaker, again, this is one of my things where I think everyone is the same as me. Like all we're ever trying to do is make something look more expensive than we have the budget for, you know?
Right.
And so a lot of times that involves like cutting in a piece of stock footage or, you know, comping your vehicle onto the road of this other shot that somebody else got, you know, or, you know, I get really annoyed with performances, especially I do a lot of comedy, and, you know, we're doing like these 15-second commercials, and like, man, in this take, this actor's eyes when he looks right and then left are so funny, but he's holding the product like at a weird angle. So the agency is like, we can't use that. And you're like, well, why don't we take his head from this take and, you know, the product from this take? So it's kind of like came half from like just wanting things to be exactly the way I want them, and half from enjoying the technology. Like I love the idea of compositing, that you can shoot layers of elements and put them together. And even in, I think the spot that we're going to talk about today, the concussion spot, I did a lot of the VFX on that, and it was all things that the agency didn't care about, the client didn't care about, nobody cared about other than me. And so I'm like, well, if you don't care about it, I'm gonna do it myself, you know? Yeah.
Well, let's jump into that spot. Let's watch the spot down, and then get into it, because I have a lot of questions about that.
Cool.
People ask how I got the name Rebel. To be honest, I have no idea. I'm incredibly well behaved. Oh, I love these. I'm totally by the book. Just completely normal. I put my fire-resistant pants on one leg at a time, like everybody else. But once when I slipped on some grass and hit my head, I know, crazy, right? I did do something pretty rebellious. I didn't try to tough it out like most people do. I went and got it checked. Lucky I did, because I had a concussion that could have caused serious damage. And I like my perfectly sensible melon just the way it is, thanks. Hey, that's a cute backpack. Don't mess with your melon. If you hit it, get it checked. God, I can't believe you just accidentally made yourself go up in the air like that. That is like an expensive stunt.
Awesome. All right, so there's a ton going on in this spot. I love it. Like, it's got everything. You got celebrities, you got sets, you got jetpacks, pythons, lots of fun camera movement and transitions. But let's first start out at the beginning and kind of like talk about like where did this job come from? Was this like triple bid through agency or like kind of direct to brand? How did you get this job?
So this was triple bid. I used to be with this company called Great Guns, and I actually only did 2 jobs with them, but I love both of the jobs. It's this one and like a Serve Pro campaign. And you know, I don't know, I'm sure you've been in this situation, especially starting out in your career. Sometimes you just happen to get shortlisted or an opportunity that you probably don't deserve. You know, I don't know. But yeah, the name of the spot is Rebel Against Concussions. But it stars Rebel Wilson, and it's about how even though her name is Rebel, she's not very rebellious. And then she continues to walk through this movie set and do a bunch of things that are rebellious, but act like she's doing them unintentionally. But so, yeah, my EP got me down to this. And I don't even know who the other 2 bidders were, but I do know that Rebel Wilson, who I did not know at all personally, had preferred one of the other directors. But the client, Abbott, really liked this Converse spot I shot with Pete Davidson and my wife. That's was really ridiculous. And they really liked my pitch. When I pitched on this job, I was working on another job in New York City, and I stayed in this hotel called the Pod Hotel in Brooklyn. And it's like one of the smallest hotels in New York. Literally, the toilet is in the shower, and it's just a bed and like a glass wall, and then a toilet and a shower and a sink, like all together. And I just thought it was so ridiculous how small it was. I spent the first 10 minutes of my pitch giving them a tour of my hotel room. And then I just started saying like, hey, I love this campaign is like built around a very simple idea and then just examples of that idea playing out, right? Let's take Rebel Wilson, an incredibly funny person, doing kind of naughty things on set, which as filmmakers, we can come up with a million things, right? So the original script had a bunch of different ideas. They had an idea that she goes to the crafty table and she switches the sign that says mild salsa with a habanero salsa, you know, and she goes and she picks up a bunch of cue cards and rearranges them. And she walks past like a wardrobe rack and she picks up someone's wardrobe, you know, as they're changing, and then they have to run out naked, you know. So she was causing all this different stuff. And then in talking to the creatives, these 2 really, really great guys, they mentioned their names were John and Vince, and they mentioned that they had all these other ideas. They had this idea where she puts on flame retardant pants and somebody shoots her with a flamethrower, and they had all these. And I was like, guys, that's really funny. Why didn't you do it? They're like, well, we just know budget wise we can't do it. I mean, the budget on this was like $350, which I don't know, to some listeners that might seem like a ton of money, and to other people it might seem like no money. But it might have actually even started like at $275 and ended up going to $350. But we shot it at Universal Studios, Union Crew in LA with Rebel Wilson. Our DP was Kramer Morgenthau, who shot like Thor and Game of Thrones, and I just knew him because he was a dad at my daughter's preschool. That's awesome. And I'd heard that he had shot all these things, and I was like, "Hey, Kramer, would you ever shoot something for me?" And he's like, "Sure." So when I went in, I was like, "Well, you know, maybe her getting her pants like caught on fire by a flamethrower is really expensive, but her picking up just a flamethrower and us adding a flame in post is not that expensive, and then we'll just put some like orange light on her or something." And then like the golf cart thing, the crashing, I kind of came up with a lot of like new gags. The knife thing, I just called a friend of mine. This is something that I encourage all directors to do when you're pitching. Is I just called a buddy of mine who's a producer, director, and I was like, what's like a funny thing you could do at a craft service table? Because I thought we could do something better. We could beat the salsa, spicy hot salsa and mild salsa sign switch. And he was like, I was like, these are the things, let's list the things that are on a crafty table. You know, you have the coffee machine, you have like some candies, you maybe have like a cheese board or something. And then my friend was like, well, what if she takes like the knife from the cheese board and like Robert Rodriguez style throws it at something and the camera passes? And I was like, oh yeah, we can use that as a transition. She throws the knife from the, you know, the charcuterie board and it hits like the wardrobe sign. And then we move on to the wardrobe department. And so I pitched it to the creatives and they're like, cool, but what if it hits a crate of pythons instead of the wardrobe sign and it lets the pythons go? And I was like, guys, that's impossible. You know, how are we going to do that? And then my production designer was like, well, we can get you a crate that says pythons on it. And I was like, well, I guess I could. I looked up like stock footage of pythons on green screen and I found a bunch. I was like, oh, I guess I could just add the pythons in post. So it just kind of, all these pieces came together. And I think they were, like you said, just so excited by how excited I was that they overruled Rebel and they're like, Oren's directing this. And we were originally, because we had, you know, we didn't have a ton of money. I know it sounds like a lot of money, but you know, this is for post-production. Like when you have a celebrity, you have to, you need a ton of gear because we only had her for 7 hours, which again, sounds like a long time, but she had to do an interview with the morning show or something. Maria Shriver came to our set to do an interview with her in the middle of the day for an hour about having a concussion. Rebel was the spokesperson because she actually did have a concussion the year before. And so we wanted to shoot at Santa Clarita Studios, which is a much less expensive backlot, New York Street. And Rebel had just had a baby like 2 weeks before. And they were like, dude, we do not want her to drive for an hour to a backlot. She'll shoot it. You can shoot at Fox, Paramount, or Universal. Those are your three options of backlots that are close enough. And so the New York streets weren't available anywhere, but this European street where they shot The Good Place at Universal Studios was available. And I was like, well, I guess let's change our whole concept of, instead of behind the scenes of like a New York like Marvel movie type thing, which by the way, when the agency came to me, there was no idea of what the movie was. Like half of it was like medieval times, and then it was like an action movie. And I was like, let's make it a movie. And so when we got this European street, I was like, let's make it like a Bourne Identity, Mission Impossible, you know, like secret statues, heist movie.
Yeah.
And once you know, even if it never comes out on camera, like once you can kind of start fitting like ideas of the backstory into your spot, it just makes it way easier to answer questions. You know, when the production designer's like, hey, should we have like a laser gun or should we have a whip? You're like, well, this is like a heist movie. So do we have like a revolver or like a metal briefcase with a bunch of money in it, you know? And then we just started adding little things. Like I thought it would be really funny if we had a prop table that says don't touch. I think I literally was on set and I saw a props table that said don't touch on it. I was like, oh, it'd be so funny if Rebel just touches the props, you know? And she happens to be really good with nunchucks, which I saw, you know, I always do a lot of research on whoever I'm working with. Yeah. And I was like, oh, let's put nunchucks on there. And she picks them up and then she just like accidentally knocks out the camera. And if you walk this you right now, you have on the screen this thing. If you go one frame at a time forward, you'll see that she hits the camera with the nunchucks. It's very subtle. It's like literally happens in like one frame, and there's even like a little shake of the camera. Yeah. And that's something I added in post. Like originally, the nunchuck went nowhere near the camera, but I kind of stretched the nunchucks out to make them hit the lens. So there's so many Easter eggs built into this thing. Yeah. That I just love, and I just got really into it. And even on this props table, you can see there's like some sort of like Austin Powers type of nuclear device, you know, and like all this cash and weapons and different things. So, and we were shooting on the Universal lot, so we can just get things from Universal prop department. So it was just kind of like leaning into what are the funniest things you could do behind the scenes of an action movie. And then my pitch was, let's shoot the behind the scenes of an action movie like an action movie. Let's get the Marvel movie DP. And then like one funny story about this whole shoot was that, again, it's a PSA. It wasn't like a Super Bowl spot or anything. And the main place that this was going to be seen was on Rebel's Instagram as a story. And so I had this DP, Kramer. He got us the same camera package that they shot Thor Dark World with, which was like a Panavision, camera with the Panavised Alexa with the C-series lenses and the anamorphic lenses. And I told everyone the whole time, we're shooting anamorphic. And the day before the shoot, the client comes up to the DP and says, hey, we just want to make sure that you're framing for 9x16 because this is mainly going to be like a story on Rebel's Instagram page. And the DP came up to me, is like, Oren, you better talk to these guys. They want to shoot this like 9x16. I don't know what to tell them. And I went to the agency guys. I was like, what? Like I told you it's anamorphic. The whole pitch was that this is an action movie style behind the scenes of an action movie. We got the camera package, the Marvel camera package. You guys are insane. And they're like, do you think that this is going to ruin the integrity of the project? Which, by the way, that's a great word that I stole from them, the word integrity. I'd never used that word before. And I was like, yes, I think it's going to ruin the integrity of the project. Like, we're at Universal Studios, for crying out loud. Like, look at, why would we not shoot as wide as possible? We want to see this place that we're spending so much money on. And they were like, okay, we'll tell the client that that will ruin the integrity of the project. And they did. And they were like, they came back and they're like, okay, Oren, it's all good. Anamorphic.
That's crazy. And that was on the morning of the shoot.
That was the day before the shoot.
Oh, day before. Okay.
Which the day before the shoot, we had Rebel stand in, and I shot the entire thing on my iPhone.
Yeah.
And of course, what did I do that evening? I went and I framed it for 9x16 on my computer, and I sent it to the client, and I sent it to the agency. And I was like, look, it's one person talking to camera. Aside from this one flamethrower scene, everything else looks great in 9x16.
Right.
So just so you know, I'm hearing you. I'm going to address it, but I'm not going to lose the integrity of the whole project.
Yeah.
I will say, though, and I don't know if you've had this before, but the morning of the shoot, I had like a panic attack. I just did not know how we were going to get all the shots. We literally, like, Rebel, like, is hanging from a helicopter. She hits a camera with nunchucks. She throws a knife at a crate of pythons. She picks up a flamethrower that blasts a bunch of people. She throws coffee on a bunch of PAs. She drives a golf cart that crashes into fragile glass. She taps a guy with a jetpack on the back, and he flies up in the air. Like, all this stuff happens. And we had, like I said, 7 hours minus her glam, minus her time. So like 4 hours of shooting. And this was in November we shot this. So the sun set at like 4:30 p.m. or something.
Right.
I was so freaked out. And I was like so scared I only had one shot per scene, like, on my shot list. And then I was like, I got to get coverage. Like, what if this doesn't time out? What if this doesn't hit the 60? How are we going to cut the 30? I need to get the close-ups. And my DP, bless his heart, was like, why do you need the coverage? I'm like, I don't know. What if the shot's not good? And he's like, the shot's good.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So we're shooting zero coverage, no coverage, one shot per scene. And it ended up working out,
That's awesome. Well, when you got Thor, DP of Thor, I guess, like, he's got that confidence. That's awesome. Well, that was like one of my questions. I mean, I've got a ton of questions now after hearing some of these stories, but like, one being, I think what would ruin my confidence is knowing that Rebel Wilson wanted to go with somebody else. Like, how did you kind of work with her, knowing that you weren't her first choice, or did you just say, forget about it?
Well, to be 100% honest, I did not know that until after the shoot.
Oh, okay.
But I was still scared because she has like a pretty tough team, and I asked for a lot of things from her, and they basically shut me down on everything. Like, they're like, she will meet with you for 1 hour before the shoot to give you feedback on the ports. I was like, I really appreciate that. I do not know that I have an hour worth of things to talk about to her, and it would be a bazillion times more valuable if you give me half an hour, you take the feedback or address it, and then we come back and you give me another half hour.
Yeah.
And they said, no. So it was just things like that, one thing after another, kind of like that. And then when I got on the call with her, she was just so lovely. They were like, she will not be on set before 9 a.m. And I was like, okay, I guess that's what it is. And we get on the call, and she's like, so what do you think the call time is? And I this is kind of a dick move, but I don't know what else to do. I said, we will take you as early as humanly possible.
Yeah.
Your people told us that you cannot be on set before 9. And she's like, well, what time would be better? Would like 7 be better? And I said, it would be so much better. And she's like, okay, we'll be there at 7.
Nice.
Sometimes they're just like, I don't know your experience with working with celebrities, but their people just push you so far against the wall that you're just so scared of asking anything of them. And then, but if you find some bravery to ask, a lot of times they'll be like, oh, sure. So they just want to make sure that you're not taking advantage of their clients, which I totally understand.
Right.
And that you're respecting their time, which I totally understand. And that you're like very buttoned up. And so, yeah, she was awesome. I thought that because we shot the whole thing with her stand-in on the day before and I cut it together and with the music and everything. And I was like, I don't think this is going to be good. I think this is really bad. And then literally she came out in her wardrobe, which is this awesome jumpsuit, which my friend Bramley, who's a costume designer, by the way, this is another awesome trick. Like when you're pitching, if there's something you don't know a lot about, call a crew member, friend of yours, and ask them like, hey, give me some ideas. What should she wear? What would be a cool action hero outfit for Rebel? And let's look at her photos, on Google Images and see what she likes to wear and what cuts and what fits and so we came up with this thing. And then she came on the screen, the very first shot, on the Steadicam, which was the one where she's walking up to craft service. And I was like, oh damn. Yep. This is going to work. There's some people, and it's annoying, but there's just some people that when you put them on camera, they turn your shot into a Hollywood movie, Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's a look thing or a confidence thing or what it is, but she's one of them, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Did she like when you kind of had that meeting with her, or did you end up having that meeting? Like, did she add like any like of her own things, or like how much of this like kind of like improv did she have when you guys were rolling?
She had 2 big notes originally. Actually, before the knife thing at the craft service table, there was a tarantula in a cage, and she was like, "Oh, look at this cute animal or whatever," and look at this cutie, and she just opens the cage of the tarantula, and then later on at the end she's like talking to camera as she's walking up to the top of a building, and she jumps off the building onto like one of those inflatable stunt landing things, and then the spider starts crawling towards her before we cut, and I kind of love that. She's like, I don't like the tarantula thing, and I don't want to do the jump because she knew like a stunt person who had like a bad experience with that. So those were her only 2 notes. And then on set, I was just like, I didn't yell cut for like 30 seconds because she would just keep going and do really, really funny things. In my edit of this, which you have the director's cut, at the end, she looks at this jetpack guy who's like stuck up in the air. Yeah. And she says, ooh, that looks like it was expensive. Or that must have been expensive or something. That was like totally a Rebel ad lib, which I thought was so funny. The people, because this is a PSA and it was paid for by the Society for People for a concussion awareness group, they were like, we don't want to talk about how expensive this was, so let's cut that. So there's little lines here and there, but she mainly just did the things in the script, and she was so buttoned up. She came to set, and I've worked with a lot of celebrities, especially not actors, but like musicians and athletes, that they've never looked at the script. They have no clue what they're doing when they get to set. I'm sure you've had that too. Yeah. But she was like, okay, well, here we're doing this part and this part, and you want me to pick up the knife, and where should I throw it? It's like, she's just, we've all worked with like just incredible actors, but there's something about when a celebrity is respecting you, which I'm not like a big respect guy in any way, but it's just like, wow, they're treating me like a peer, and like they're asking me questions about what to do, and it's cool. I think that's where I got the confidence on the day, when she was talking to me like a normal human being. Yeah, totally.
I had a similar situation to that with it was actually it was like a job I DP'd, and it was with Lainey Wilson, the country music star, and I was pretty it was for Coors Light. I was like super nervous about it, but she was just so nice and the most down to earth person, and just like wanted to kind of like hang out, you know, like, because a lot of celebs, right? It's like you do the take and then they just go, right?
Yeah.
They like go to their,
And they don't want to come to set until you're ready to.
yeah. But like she would hang out, you know, and like, you know, wanted to make sure like we got everything. Like it was awesome, but it helped so much because the whole crew, you could tell, was like so uptight and everybody was nervous, and like the agency is like making people freak out, or like her like you said, like they're kind of handlers, like make it seem like everybody's gonna die if something doesn't go right, you know. But then she got there, and like when everybody just realized like, oh, she's just a human being and super cool, like everybody was like, you could just feel like this, like as a sigh of relief, and everybody could just do their job like they normally do. So
Yeah. I mean, good celebrity talent realizes that everyone on set is that they're actually setting the tone for the set.
yeah,
I think if you're non-celebrity shoot, the director is a lot of times setting the tone, or a producer, whoever's the loudest. The AD could even be setting the tone,
Yeah.
the DP. But when you have a celebrity, it's just different. And I've worked with ones that are like doing you such a favor for being there, and I've worked with ones that have really owned their position of like saying hi to everyone and being nice,
Right.
and you know, asking like, hey, how many more takes until this is over? And then realizing that they've made everyone uncomfortable and saying like, oh, I'm just asking because I wanted to try something at the end. You know,
Yeah.
like, so yeah, it was really good. This frame that you have up, and again,
Yeah.
I don't know if people are watching this on YouTube or seeing this or just listening, but it's like one thing I kind of tried to build into the design of this spot, which again is like Rebel Wilson starting, like we see her hanging from a helicopter. We call cut, and we realize she's, you know, on a blue screen, and then she walks down this long path at Universal Studios of this road, and I try to keep geographic continuity. It's probably very different than the work you do, but and everywhere she goes, she's destroying something.
yeah,
Like in the beginning, you know, she hits the camera. At you know, the next shot, she lets these pythons loose. The next shot, she's throwing off this, like firing off this flamethrower. And you can see the python. You see in the crate, like right before.
yeah,
That's like, you know, I added that's kind of, those are the things I do. But there's also kind of a little story in the back, like the guy at the craft service table that's doing the coffee. He's like the coffee guy. We see his back right there. Also, my wife is standing on the ledge over there. She's kind of the wardrobe person. She's holding
nice.
some wardrobe there. If you see after the flamethrower moment, she's here like cleaning up the soot off of Rebel's shirt. There's like a statue. The coffee guy is here on the right. He's about to deliver some coffees, so they're on the golf cart, and she takes his coffees and tosses them at someone, and we hear like a little scream.
right,
I wanted to put on the golf cart a sign that says reserved for Meryl S., like a Meryl Streep joke, but Rebel made us cut that. But she, like, as she's going down, you see the coffee guy now in this next shot. He's like, wait, where'd my coffee go? And she hits this, you know, these boxes that say fragile on them. And the coffee guy is looking in the background. The wardrobe person is like running around. Now she pulls it, you know, she sets this jetpack guy up in the air on accident and telling him to be careful. But you see in this final shot, like, she set a building on fire in the background. There's pythons crawling all over the set. And if you look really closely, there's like broken glass on the floor. There's spilled coffee in the background. And the coffee guy is like wondering what's going on. And I tried to kind of, you know, build this like trail of destruction that you would 100% not notice on the first viewing. But
Yeah.
hopefully it adds up to something. And if not, then at least I just have it to enjoy it, you know?
Well, that's like what's I think is like really cool about this. And it sounds like a really awesome kind of collaboration with you and the agency. But like how did that go? Like, you know, because sometimes I think that's always a worry, right? It's like how much do you push without like pissing off the creative? Because, you know, lots of people have egos and they are kind of protecting their creatives, you know. So how do you kind of find that balance of like, being like, hey, this is really cool, but this might be better. Have you thought about this? Like, how did you kind of like, able to kind of like push for some of these different scenes than maybe what was bordered or first presented to you?
Well, something I truly believe, and I don't think a lot of people think about it, is that the work that I do, at least, tends to be as good as the agency creatives are. Maybe sometimes I mess some things up and it's not as good as the original potential. But in my personal, very biased opinion, when I make a good spot, it's when we're all in sync with each other. And when I make a bad spot, it's when we're all like pushing against each other, you know? And these creatives, John Maxim and Vince, we just like were on the same page on everything. It's just weird. I would pitch an idea and they'd say yes or no. And like in the client cut, the pythons aren't in the foreground in this final shot where you see her walking away because they thought it like seemed too dangerous. But the agency guys were like, yeah, we love that. Let's give us your director's cut. We like that better. So just from the very first call, when they told me that one of the things they do, the way they work, is they make a list. Here's 20 funny things that can happen. Let's budget them. Let's find like the 3 things that make it in the final cut. Instead of the jetpack guy that flies up in the air, their original idea was 2 guys are carrying a big pane of glass and she just like walks right through it and it shatters into a million pieces. And I was like, guys, of course that's hilarious, but I just can't even start thinking of how we shoot that in 20 minutes, you know? Like, it's a huge stunt, and the way we're doing this, where it's 1 shot per beat, we'll get 1 take, or maybe 2 takes, then we have to clean up. And is Rebel just really going to walk into a pane of glass and have it just shatter? And then they were like, well, what about this jetpack idea? And I was like, okay, that can work because it is behind the scenes. We it's okay if we see a wire connected to the jetpack guy and it pulls him up. Honestly, one of my biggest disappointments here is I wanted him to just like launch up full speed, and just we did not have the gear to take him up that fast. There are a lot of things that didn't work out here, but I think I do want to bring up like one more interesting thing about this spot for me as a learning lesson. I love this spot. It's my favorite spot I've shot. It's at the top of my website, even though it's like 3 years old already. Which is a little bit of a bummer. Like, I think the goal is to like get the top spot on your website to be a new spot every year, but it's really hard. But I don't think I would have loved this spot if it didn't have the fire, the flamethrower shot in it. In the middle of the spot, Rebel picks up this flamethrower and she waves it around wildly, and these giant flames come out of it. And, I have a background in VFX. Like, the second I saw that shot, I was like, guys, just so you know. And the creative was like, she should wave it around crazy. Like, she doesn't care. And I'm like, she could totally do that, especially up and down. But just know, once she starts turning it right and left, this is no longer a 2D effect.
Yeah.
This isn't just add flames. This is a 3D effect, and we can do our best, but it might not look good. And we already had contracted our post team, and they were not a VFX house, they were a post house, but they're like, oh, we know a little Cinema 4D, which, like, for anyone that knows anything about 3D graphics, like, Cinema 4D is not the software that you would use to make like an awesome looking flame. You'd use like Houdini and Maya and Embergen and like these other things. And so we had this shot and it just looked really bad. And I spent 2 weeks just trying to learn how to do fire simulations in Blender and realizing my computer's not good enough. And I was just like really freaking out. And the agency guys were like, what do you think about the flamethrower thing? I was like, just to be 100% honest, I don't think it's good. And they're like, this one shot kind of ruins, again, the integrity of the whole spot. And so through our rep, she repped like a VFX house called The Artery. Well, first I called my friend and I was like, how much would it cost to get this awesome flamethrower shot? And he's like, well, it's really slow right now in town. I have a lot of available artists. I'm going to give you a dirt, like a very low rate. This is one shot getting a cool looking flame coming out of the flamethrower. How much do you think he quoted me? My friend, who he did like Man in the High Castle, a lot of cool TV shows and movies.
Yeah. I'm gonna say 40.
40 grand.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's the high price. He gave me this special deal was $18,000.
Okay.
But we had $0 allocated for it.
Yeah.
So everyone was like, sorry, Oren, we just don't have $18,000 to give for this one shot. It's not that bad. And I'm like, okay. Anyway, we just kept pushing on it. And then we found this other company, the Artery, that had the same rep as Great Guns, that was willing to do it because it's a PSA and they had some time for like $9,000, half the price.
Wow. Yeah.
And so luckily my EP, Oliver, and the client said, okay, well, the agency convinced the client, we'll go 50-50 on it. We each put in $4,500. And I think it was so worth it, because if this shot just looked really crappy, the whole rest of the spot would not be that good. And my lesson learned that for directors listening, especially newer ones that are kind of building up their reel, and I know everyone knows this because it's said a lot, but it's just so true. Like every spot is as good as the worst shot in that spot,
Yeah.
In your type of work, for sure, I'm sure you have like these epic shots, and every once in a while you get this shot that you're like, oh, it's not that good. But if we reframe it and now it looks a little soft and we sharpen it and you're trying to make it fit the rest of the beauty and it's just ruining the whole spot,
Yep.
So just resist the urge to use crappy shots.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my big lesson in post-production on this one.
Well, and it's hard, like you said too, like if you're not getting the coverage, right? Or if it's like a key shot to the story.
Yeah.
What about the schedule with this? Because I'm like you said, there's so much going on in this, and there's a ton of shots, and you only have 7 hours. So how did you go? I guess it's kind of like a 2-part question. Is like, how did you kind of plan for this shoot? Like, what did your kind of pre-pro look like? I mean, you mentioned a little bit with like shooting her kind of stand-in the day before and kind of doing like a crap-o-matic on your iPhone, but kind of what was that pre-pro and planning like? And then also like, the schedule, like how did you guys kind of manage the schedule with this?
Yeah, well, I'm a huge fan, again, as I think every director is, in shooting in order. And when you're shooting exteriors, it's like incredibly helpful because if you're losing the sun, at least it makes sense in story order. The worst is when you have a dark shot and now a bright shot and now a dark shot, and you're trying to like color grade it to match, and the sky is totally different and the trees are black in the background,
Right.
So I just did every single thing you can do. I pre-shot the entire thing on my iPhone, made sure we literally had the Steadicam operator on our pre-light day. We had my DP Kramer was like, we had the 18Ks on the Condor cranes. He's like, okay, so are you thinking this is like kind of like naturally lit or more like kind of poppy commercial look? And I was like, I think poppy commercial look. And he's like, okay, then I think I'll put like the 18Ks. I'll get a couple more 18Ks for when she's down the road a little. And I was like, a couple more 18Ks. And I have this weird thing where I'm like worried about the budget all the time, even though I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I was like, why would you get a couple more 18Ks? You have these 18Ks on the Condor. And he's like, oh, I thought you said we had to shoot fast. I'm like, yeah, we do have to shoot fast. He's like, it'll take us like 45 minutes to move these 18Ks over here. Let's just get 2 more 18Ks, 2 more Condors or whatever. And I was like, hey, if they approve that, I'm all for it. And so, sometimes having more gear does actually pay off to let you shoot faster. So they kind of pre-lit everything, which is like, if you watch this, you'd be like, what did they even light? It's all a daytime exterior, but it's very lit. This flamethrower shot, we had like 6 maxi brutes, like on dimmers, Variac dimmers or whatever, like blasting her with kind of orange light. And so, I didn't have the extras the day before, but I worked with my AD to plan out where every extra will go. I think we only had, it was obviously a SAG shoot because of Rebel. I think we only had like 12 extras. But we just worked out every single prop, every single motion, every single everything. So when Rebel came, we would do like 2 or 3 takes. Everybody knew where to go. The camera person knew where to go. And she luckily just kind of nailed it, on the first take. Like there were, each scene, there's like 4 good takes, Yeah. It was kind of hard to choose. Like, well, she did this funny look here, and she did this framing is like a little better here. But yeah, we also, because we're shooting behind the scenes, we could put all these lights in the shot, you know. So like if you look at this shot, so we just had all these fun glows. And this was the first time I ever shot on the RE Alexa 35, and it had these like film looks and stuff built in.
Set the volume between 0 and 10.
My Echo, Amazon Echo just went off when I named the camera that we used.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, how do you shoot fast?
Sorry, say that again.
I said, how do you shoot fast when you know you're not going to have a lot of time?
I mean, it's a lot like what you're saying, right? Like, I think it's planning, like a ton of pre-pro. Like, I like to just like do so much pre-pro that like you kind of know the whole shoot like the back of your hand. You know what I mean? So, like, it's like you've done all the work already. So when you get there, like, you're just not that worried about it. Like, you kind of know like all the beats of the day and what's going to go on. I think too, like on a shoot like this, like, I mean, it's a lot of times like I'll have like multiple sets, right? And so it's kind of like you're like doing between sets, where I've had it like it's crazy day, I have all these different looks, and I'll have one set already built or art department working on that set while we're shooting the other one, and then we kind of like do, right? And then we go shoot the other one, then while they swap the other one out for something like that. I think it's like probably the best way to do it. But like I said, I think it's the pre-pro is where I just find like if I just like basically shoot it all before, just like you do on your iPhone, you know, and kind of figure out all the beats and all the timing, I feel pretty good the day of. You know, I think what's hard is if you have like lots of like gear, you know, or technical stuff, and like something doesn't work, right? You know, or like the timing, like the timing's always the thing, right? If there's a lot of choreography, because that's what I was going to ask you is the timing on this. Like, did you worry about like, you know, kind of the timing for her to get from one place to the next, or for when she pulls the Rocket Guys like ripcord thing to send him up, you know, did you already have like all those beats figured out, or were you not worried about it? You're just kind of like, we'll just figure it all out, or?
Yeah, no, I had it, I guess, all figured out in the first the storyboard animatic, and then the crap-o-matic, as you call it. That's the only scene where I actually have cuts, and it does help us, you know, kind of shave a second or add a second.
Yeah.
We have like a flamethrower transition that lets us suck up a second or add another second. You know, like those little things are where you can gain and lose a few seconds. But you're trying to get it timed out pretty good. This is a 60. You can see my director's cut is 63 seconds. Because I stretched, I think, the flamethrower moment, and I added this line at the end that's like another 2 seconds. But timing is tricky with commercials. A 60 is obviously much easier than a 15, which I find the timing is really hard.
Yeah.
But one other kind of fun tip, and I bet I'm not as knowledgeable about this as most producers, but if you're in LA and you have a shoot, you can just go scout these backlots. You know, your producer can just call and say, hey, we're interested in New York Street. Are you available on this date? And they'll be like, sure, come check it out. And you can just go to Universal Studios, the backlot, and get a golf cart tour. And so I went there like 4 times before the pre-light day, you know, and it's just so fun. You see the tram going around and stuff, and you get to like see the Western area. You know, I don't know. I freaking love backlots.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I just think it's like the Hollywood dream of anyone that like wants to work here. So
yeah.
But I still do that. I mean, the tools are different now. This is, again, it's only been 3 years, but now I've used a lot of AI stuff, and I'm doing like this shoot next week where we have like a lot of drone shots, and I just went on like Google Earth and like kind of did the drone shots, and then I bring them into like Nano Banana and be like, hey, give me like a 3D extraction of this image, and then, you know, Photoshop generative fill and then I give that to my storyboard artist that draws it the way I want it. And it's crazy. Yeah. So I mean, what else can you do other than prep?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's huge. You know, I think that's what's kind of funny is like on set, sometimes I feel so worthless because like everybody's like running around, you know, and you're just kind of like sitting behind the monitor. But I'm like, we've already done all our work, you know, and then I'll be in post
Evan
and
on
whatnot.
set is where the free food comes in.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just here for the meals. Yeah, and the client gifts, the swag, they've got it. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Bring stuff home for the kids.
I have a shoot. I have an upcoming shoot with like a athlete celebrity that I think just seeing some of their past work, I feel like I'll have my job cut out for me just in terms of getting a comedic performance.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I had a shoot recently where I really liked the wardrobe the actor was going to wear.
Mm-hmm.
So I made sure the actor was the same size as me so I could just take home
Ooh,
all of the wardrobe afterwards. That's
a
why
good move.
I'm really there.
I've never done that, but I do. I've done 2 campaigns, 2 years in a row of Canon printers.
Yeah.
And then I get like all the ink at the end of the shoot. Like, give me the ink. So I have so much Canon ink at my house right now.
I'm with like that with Vega protein powder. My wife is a huge Vega protein powder fan. So, and I use that in my treatment of like you talked about the eye drops. I like had the tub, you know, or on the pitch and was like, we use this at our house all the time.
Oh, dude. I mean, that's another kind of obvious tip, but just like go to frickin' Target and get the Pringles can when you're doing the Pringles pitch. Like, why not? My wife likes drawing portraits of dogs. Well, she's drew portraits of 2 of our dogs, but I put the portraits up in the background when I pitched for BarkBox, you know, a dog toy company. Like, all these people want is for you to care about the work that they've been working on.
Right.
You know, and it's so easy to do that. I have like everything on my desk is like from different pitches.
That cat food?
No, this is Caesar dog food, I think.
Oh, Caesar dog food.
Campaign
Yeah.
will come out soon.
Heck yeah. So are you like, because in this, did you, besides the flamethrower, did you do all the VFX though, or?
Aside from the flamethrower, yes. I even did like the tail end of the smoke transition to the next shot.
Yeah.
And I did the pythons. I did any like little cleanup like the smoke in this shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we actually had a flame artist do the blue screen, the opening blue screen, but I think I didn't like what he did. And then I showed him, I was like, hey, can you use this plate and use this contrast? And I think I might have like micromanaged it. I did have the pleasure on this one where we had a long time on post because we shot it right before Thanksgiving. And so, you know, everyone was out of town. So I just had like weeks by myself and with the footage. So I could just test it out. And I was very excited. I mean, my other like huge tip is just like get the footage and cut your director's cut as fast as humanly possible. Yeah. Otherwise, you will never, ever do it. I have a list of like 15 jobs I did over the last 2 years that I'm like dying to cut director's cuts of. But by the time I even find the files and then do the color grade and then do all that stuff, it's just never going to happen.
That's like usually what I do. It's usually like my R1 is the director's cut, you know, and then it gets, you know, they'll have their notes and whatnot, but I'm like, all right, well, that's fine because that's the director's cut. And, you know, and then.
Remember, I learned about what Ian Pons Jewell said about the director's cut from Adam Patch.
Oh, yeah.
On the Commercial Directors podcast.
Right. Yeah, that's how we connected.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to have that confidence where you're like, what do you mean director's cut? The cut is the director's cut.
Yeah.
They have a client cut or an agency cut. He's like, Ian is like unaware of who's paying for the job.
Yeah, exactly.
He thinks it's his product. And that's a pretty smart way to think about it if you want to make good work.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, sweet. Is there anything else you want to kind of throw in about this or jump to the lightning round here?
No, I'm down to the lightning round.
Let's do it. All right, cool. Stop the share here. All right. So question number 1 is, speaking of Ian Pons Jewell here. So what directors inspire you?
Okay. This is my list. That was just when you asked me this question like a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
Who just popped in my mind? Jackson TC. Do you know him?
Yeah.
He's awesome. You should have him on a podcast. Freddie Powell has a company, Drool. He's amazing. He's the person that taught me to do a video treatment because I lost to him because he did a video treatment.
Oh, that's awesome.
Kim Gehrig. And then I love Nick Ball, Dave Myers, Ryan Coogler, Gareth Edwards, Edgar Wright, Nina Meredith. Just some of my recent favorites. Nina was on our podcast, and she's, if you want to listen to an episode of our podcast, her just story of like directing Michael B. Jordan as like her first commercial job is so good. So yeah, I like all of those people. Do you have a list? Do people ask you who you like?
They don't, but yeah, I mean, I have a lot of those. I think mine like kind of goes back and forth a lot. I'm also huge into love Kim, love Ian Pons Jewel. I really like Nick Ball. Solomon I really like a ton. I also like Jackson as well.
He's like 10 years old. That guy. He's so young.
I know.
It's frustrating.
I'm a big fan of Parker Schmidt, who we had on the show, who's also like 25 and just works a ton, and his work is beautiful. Well, so what inspires you outside of directing?
Again, I can tell that I wrote this list a month and a half ago. I love, for better or worse, I love politics. I love talking politics. Even though on my podcast, I never... Yeah. I do believe that my listenership our listenership is like very across the gamut of across the political spectrum, and I really don't want to alienate anyone, and I don't think that my opinion on politics should, affect my work as a director or like my list. Like I don't want to alienate anyone, basically. Right. But I have a lot of opinions, and I love reading the news and talking about politics to anyone that's willing to talk to me about it. I love restaurants. My wife and I invested in like a restaurant that ended up turning into like a restaurant group. So now we're like part owners of like 3 restaurants, and it's
that's awesome. Again,
back to the free food thing. Like it's just the most fun thing. I just love going to restaurants with people that like food.
What kind of food? What kind of food is your restaurant?
It has like this great story. It's called Olive and Oak. It's in Webster Groves in St. Louis. It's like a suburb of St. Louis, and it's like fine dining American food. The founder of it, our friends Mark and Jen Hinkle, they had a son named Oliver, and he had a congenital heart defect. And when they were in the hospital, they met another family that had a son named Oaks that also had a congenital heart defect. And unfortunately, neither baby made it, but the Oaks' dad was like an entrepreneur, and Oliver's dad, Mark, was like a restaurant manager, and they always had this dream of opening a restaurant, and they opened it. It's called Olive and Oak, named after their sons, and it just is really, really good, and they've been really successful. They opened it maybe 8 years ago or something, 9 years ago. And then it did so well that they bought the restaurant next to them. It's called the Clover and the Bee. It's more of like a brunch counter, like eggs, pastries, like they do like wine tasting nights like during the week and stuff. And then that did so well, they ended up buying the entire building across the street, and they teamed up with this beer maker named Perennial, a Midwestern beer maker. So they have a gastropub in the back and an event space, and in the front, they moved their flagship restaurant, Olive and Oak, and they changed the original Olive and Oak to be O&O Pizza, which is like an Italian place that just has like incredible pasta. And they keep like getting nominated for like James Beard's Awards, and it's family friendly and delicious, and it's really good. If you're in the St. Louis area, go to Webster Groves. You got to check out Olive and Oak and all the restaurants. They're awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's such a great story. I mean, that's really cool.
No, it's good. I actually watched Hamnet last night. I just mentioned, and it's got like a lot of, Hamnet is about Shakespeare's lost his son named Hamnet, and to deal with the grief, like he opened a play. It's called Hamlet. It's kind of got a lot of parallel, like rhyming storylines to our friend's life. I love tech stuff. I love gadgets. I love Wirecutter and Dyson vacuums and iPhones and Tesla. I mean, Elon Musk, I find difficult in most ways, but he makes some very fun products. I like construction. We have a house and a rental, and I love DIY, doing stuff, buying things, changing out, doing some drywall, fixing things, destroying other things.
Man. Yeah.
And then I have 2 young kids, and I like them. They inspire me, and I spend a lot of time with them. I spend a lot more time than I think our generation's parents, especially the dads, spent with their kids.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Yeah. And I make a point to as well.
Yeah.
All right. So this next question is the straight rip-off question from your podcast. So, and you've probably answered this a ton, but is the tools question is what kind of tool? What tool can you not live without? Whether that's pre-pro, post, onset.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite website by far, if I could only go to one website for the rest of my life, it would be YouTube. I just freaking love YouTube, and I don't think enough people understand like how amazing this website. I mean, of course, it's like the most watched. It's probably the number one website in the world.
Yeah.
It's the most watched thing. Like my 70-something-year-old, parents, like that's their favorite website too.
Yeah.
But like from fixing things, from finding things, from references, I just love it. My number 2, I love this website called Source Creative. It's like where it has basically every commercial made all over the world that's searchable and keywordable. It's really hard to get a subscription to it, and I pay way too much money for it. But it's like my secret weapon, which I tell everyone about for pitches. And number 3, I put Default Folder. It's just this amazing plugin for Mac OS that whenever you have a file open dialog box, it just shows you instantly on the right. You have like all the recent files you saved and all the recent folders you've accessed. So if you saved a file in Photoshop and now you're opening it in After Effects or Adobe Premiere or Gmail, it'll just be there at the very top. So it just removes all that navigation that you needed. Then, love it or hate it, I use Midjourney a lot. It's probably like my top AI tool. Number 5, I love the Notes app on Apple. I just love simple apps that have very little barrier to use. Mm-hmm. And then number 6 is the 4K video downloader, which goes back to number 1, YouTube and Vimeo. And anytime you see anything you want to rip some frames or some GIFs or whatever, use 4K video downloader. And you can also use it to pull music. So, a lot of times I'm like trying to, to me, the easiest way to find music, this is probably illegal. I mean, it's 100% illegal, but you can find the music video on YouTube, put it in 4K video downloader. You can just download the audio from it, and then you just have it. And so if I'm cutting a reel, I obviously would never put it in any commercial use thing, but for your own thing, I love just being able to download music for free like that very quickly.
Yep. All right. Well, so the next question is, we have every guest leave a question for the next guest. So this one's pretty funny. I think you're going to have fun with this one. So did you ever lose your shit on set, and what made you flip?
That is a good question. It's the only question you didn't give me ahead of time.
I know.
So now I have to stop down for a second and think about it. It's funny, even in times when I think I lose my shit and that I'm flipping out, the people around me tell me, they're like, that's you losing your shit? You seem like completely normal. I made a whole movie that starred like a primarily deaf cast, and they told me that I was like the worst person at sign language because I'm so not expressive. I made this other movie with Lori Loughlin. You know her? She played Aunt Becky on Full House.
Full House, yeah.
And, some college scandal stuff as well. But I remember one day, it was probably day 14 of the shoot or something. Her and her co-star were like, "So Oren, how's it going? You feel good about the shoot?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's great." Wouldn't every director just say it's great? Doesn't every director say that it's great? And they were like, "Well, you don't." And I was like, "Oh man, I'm horrible at this." That was like a huge lesson. I mean, this was years ago, but just reminding me to just tell people they're doing a good job. It's like kind of one of your best moves as a director is to tell people they're doing a good job.
Right.
Or, hey, this is how I like things to be done. I don't know how you do it, but like now on set, I will just say like, hey, when you set the monitor, like why do I have to have my back to set? Like when you set the monitor, make sure I'm facing the actors so I can talk to them from behind the monitor. And I used to just tiptoe around that stuff, and now I'm just really short. But I did do a shoot. It's probably like, it was pre-COVID, like 6 years ago or something, where I was trying to get a performance from this actress, and I knew that she was a good actress. She had an amazing audition, super funny, but we just weren't getting like what the agency was looking for.
Right.
And it was one of these things where we did like 20 takes of a line, and the PA who was like locking down the street, she was in a car. He just started like telling her like, wait, what if you do it like this? And he was just pitching her ways to do it. And, you know, it was already like such a tense thing because I kind of liked her first performance, you know, but now we're like on 20 and she's in her head and now this PA who must have been like 18 years old is like, what if you like think about it like this? And I was like, hey, and I called him over. I was like, hey man, like, I appreciate that you're trying to help, but do not talk to the actors and try to direct them. We're already in a tense enough situation. And you just made things like really uncomfortable. And I asked like the AD if he can like switch him out. Cause it was just weird. Even if he didn't say anything else from then on out, the actress was like getting notes from the PA that was like locking down the street, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's awkward.
I think that's that was a good one. But yeah, I mean, I'm usually not flipping out.
Right.
I'm just insanely stressed out internally, and on the outside, people just think I'm normal.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so then it's your turn to leave a question for the next guest.
Okay, I wrote these a few months ago, so I had a different question my old question was, how do you cope with rejection and how long does it take you to get over it? Clearly, I wrote that question right after I was rejected, but I'm going to not use that question.
Okay.
This is a more useful question that I would like to know. When you shot list, how do you come up with the first shot? It's honestly something, again, after like 20 years of being in this business, I still have trouble doing it. You know, every once in a while, it's like so obvious what the first shot is.
Right.
But sometimes I'm like, what is a powerful way to start this, you know, to pull people in?
That is a really good question. And I don't know if I've ever really like thought about that. It's kind of funny because like going back to the very beginning of our conversation when you were talking about like that director who you first talked to, and he had the 50-page treatment, he watches all the YouTube videos. Mm-hmm. That is like, I was like, that's how I am. I'm like that guy. Like I do the same thing, like long, big treatments, but also like just consume so much content when I'm in the treatment writing thing. Cause it's just like something clicks and then I'll start just creating around that one little spark. You know what I mean? And it's almost like once I get moving, it's like you just have to make that first step and then everything kind of falls in place. And maybe that first spark and like idea gets tossed out, but it led to somewhere else, you know, but it's all from just like watching like and consuming a ton of commercials, you know?
Yeah.
So.
It is weird. I do think we had this director, Joseph Kahn, on. I might have even told you this in our pre-interview, but I was talking to him about treatments and about how he references things and comes up with what his tools are. And he was like, I don't really reference other things. He's like, I just think of what the coolest thing would be, and then I describe it. And I was like, damn, am I in this stuck in this weird loop of just referencing things? Like everything. Yeah. And I don't mind like making derivative work or whatever. I'm going to try not to, but I'm like, I do, you know, I don't, most of us have read like Robert Rodriguez's Rebel Without a Crew, you know, when we got into this. And, you know, he always talks about in that book, like you just close your eyes and just picture the movie and just write down the shots you see. And I like don't do that anymore, you know? Yeah. Now I'm like, ooh, I saw this cool shot, and now we'll rig the camera here, and then we'll do this. And ooh, I feel like we need to go wide here. Like, it's like I'm having the references tell me how to shoot it instead of my imagination. And that's my thing for 2026 I talked about on my podcast that I'm trying to work on is to imagine more and reference less.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think that's with frame set and eye candy and all these things. I think it's so easy just to go through there and almost like take the script and go to eye candy and just start doing that. And I've definitely been guilty of that too, where it's just like, what's cool, what's trending, and you're just kind of almost making all this eye candy versus trying to think of something unique or that is your voice, or that would kind of sell the product the best. So,
yeah.
Well, Oren, I really appreciate you, man. This has been super fun. Thanks so much for jumping on.
Thanks. Yeah, you too.
All right, that does it for another show. Thanks for watching the Commercial Directors Podcast, and please subscribe to the show on any of the platforms where you listen to your podcast and on YouTube. YouTube's a great place where you can actually watch the breakdown, so make sure you subscribe. Also, give us a follow on the gram at the Commercial Directors Pod, and please DM us there. We would love to hear from you on potential guests you'd like on the show and what topics you want to learn more about. Or you can email me at evan@swinehartco.com, and that's SWINEHARTCO.com.